internets, how you doing? Reconsider here. Solar flares. It's been kicking off. The sun has become more powerful. Wednesday, 6th of September at 14:29 European time, an X-class CME solar flare kicked off. It's the 14th largest since records began, and is also the largest being recorded in the last 12 years. I was actually recording a YouTube video at the time, and it was the previous one to do with Robert Bernard, and I had this weird disruption. My monitors went all weird and flickery, the lights dimmed, and even my mobile phone dimmed as well. It's very bizarre. I can actually show you a clip, so take it away. Take a look now. This and releasing this type of information is that he's going to be ostracized by the mainstream. Wow, drama, suspense, slightly anticlimactic though. It was more interesting from my point of view. I checked the time when I actually filmed the clip and also when the CME went off, and it was literally about 8 or 15 minutes after the solar flare itself, which is why I'm kind of considering the two events are kind of linked. My mobile phone wasn't really plugged in as well. It wasn't plugged into any kind of wall sockets or via USB to the computer. So, what would affect that? Because usually, power surges can make screens flicker and lights dim. But because my mobile phone was affected as well, it made me think it was something electromagnetic, something from the exterior rather than coming through the mains electricity itself. Now, I went on the NASA website and they have a really good infographic that talks about all the different energies and how long they take to hit Earth from the sun. So sunlight, nice and simple, takes 8 minutes from the sun to hit Earth itself. Then you have X-ray emissions, which take 8 to 15 minutes to hit the Earth. Then radio noise can take as quick as 8 minutes, then as long as 3 days to hit Earth. Energetic particles, again 8 minutes, and again 3 days to hit the Earth. And then solar winds can be constant, so it's from 8 minutes all the way up to 4 days, they can actually hit Earth. Now, I was considering this quite a synchronistic event because my disaster prediction app, which I have, which is very good. If you don't have it, I suggest you get it. And it's linked to spaceweathernews.com. And they deal with space weather, earthquakes, geomagnetic information. Now, when, all the screens went all flickery, I then sort of immediately checked my phone. I just saw all these updates to do with the solar flare. And I was like, oh, wow, that could be linked to why I had that kind of scenario. So it's very, very strange. But the whole subject for me is very new, like solar flares. And I've had a passing interest in it before, but since the solar flares kicked off, I've sort of read a bit more about it, so I've had a bit of a crash course. Apologies if there are any inaccuracies of what I'm saying. I've tried my best to be as accurate as possible. But why are solar flares important? Why is solar activity important? Well, I went onto the UK government website and they had a really nice summary paragraph about it, which I can read you now, which goes, space weather events pose a risk to technology, infrastructure, electrical systems, and to a limited extent, public health. Now, it's important because one of the main effects of solar flares and solar events is it could really disable the entire electrical grid system, bring it to complete halt, like across countries and the whole planet. And it could happen for extended periods of time. So not just a few hours, but maybe weeks and months. And this is why people take notice, because some people that are quite into space weather actually do a lot of prepping as well. So they have food stocks, water stocks, generators, because obviously our society is very much based on electricity, so if we didn't have it, it would cause complete chaos, especially if it's going to go on for weeks or months. And so there are people out there that do prep for these events itself. Also, the health effects are quite significant. It can affect a huge range of conditions such as allergies and also kind of depression as well. In terms of the Earth itself, earthquakes can affect the weather and increases radiation. And this could be a problem, especially if you're flying in the air in an airplane. You already get zapped with a lot of radiation as it is, but if there's increased space weather, then the radiation can be even more. So yeah, it's something to consider anyway. Slight silver lining, you get to see the aurora borealis a lot more, so it's more of a possibility of seeing the northern lights, which is nice, which is a good aspect of it, I guess. Now, why is it important to esoteric people, kind of the truth movement? The solar event, some people call it the event or Ascension, and it's basically the whole idea is that human evolution, maybe the theory of it is slightly inaccurate. Some people feel that there has been these huge jumps in human evolution and sophistication in a really short space of time. And it doesn't really link in with Darwinism, the whole theory of evolution, which is slow development of a species over a long period of time, because we're missing these missing links in kind of not just humanity's evolution, but also other species as well. And some people link this ascension to solar energy, that the solar energy, when you have these solar flares, like probably one more powerful ones than this one at the moment, it can change our DNA and directly affect the growth of us as a more sophisticated species. Because before we've had huge jumps in, the growth of the brain sort of doubled in size, and also our ability to use tools has happened in a really short space of time. And some people link that to the actual solar flares itself. Another kind of esoteric idea that people link in with solar weather and space weather is why they do geoengineering in terms of chemtrails and the spraying of aluminium, barium, and titanium. And one theory is that the elites are involved in a kind of a spiritual war, because solar events and solar flares could affect our DNA and affect our evolution. They're on purpose, they are spraying these chemicals into the sky, into the ether, to reduce the temperatures on Earth and mitigate the effects of solar energy, and therefore reducing human advance and ascension itself. So a lot of people have ideas this is the reason why geoengineering and chemtrails actually exists. So what is solar activity? Well, it works in cycles apparently. So every 11 years is a peak in solar activity. And it's all to do with this solar magnetic field that surrounds the sun itself. And is one of the largest, in terms of solar flares, one of the largest explosions you can get within our solar system. And when a solar flare happens, it releases millions of hydrogen bombs all at once over a few seconds, or either spread over an hour itself. So they're incredibly powerful. And when they do occur, they release radio waves, ultraviolet light, visible light, infrared, microwaves, X-rays, gamma rays, a lot of waves, a lot of power, a lot of energy. Now, CMEs, what are they? They are coronal mass ejections, and the sun is surrounded by a corona, a strong magnetic field, and they're closed over sunspots. And there are these points where they can't take the pressure anymore, and it just releases billions of tons of matter into the sky. And it's not all the time that they actually hit Earth. It can sort of fire off in a completely different direction. But the current CMEs that happen at the moment are directed at Earth itself. Now, the first CME was going to hit Earth. It hit sort of yesterday, really early in the morning at 00:44 hours, and actually turned out to be quite small. And then shortly after that, at 01:30 hours, again, this is European time, you had the first solar wind that hit. Now, the second CME, which is the X class, the more powerful one. Yeah, by the way, X class is the classification system, and that's the kind of the largest CMEs you can get. So that's what that stands for. Now, so the largest CME, the X class, hit last night at 11 p.m. and this has already increased geomagnetic storms as well. Now, there's going to be a third one. I've been watching some YouTube videos, and it's going to happen at any point now. So it could have happened by the time I upload this video. I'm not quite sure. But because the other two have occurred, the power of it's going to be even more compounded. Now, we've already seen damage across the world already. In Oxford Street, there was a power surge around there. In London, there's been problems with electricity grid systems in America, and then also Sydney in Australia as well. And again, there is a more increased possibility of seeing the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis, over areas of Germany as well. So that's quite exciting. That's going to happen across the entire weekend. This whole science, this whole sphere of kind of reporting space weather, I think is really fascinating, really interesting. It's really strange that the mainstream haven't really utilized this forecasting, because it affects so much, in terms of our electrical grid systems, our technology potentially, earthquakes, weather, and public health as well. So I think it's really important that people kind of clue themselves up with space weather and, pay attention to it like they do the normal weather. But it's really great that there are people like the Disaster app and spaceweathernews.com and other websites and YouTube channels that are really digging deep into this subject and really reporting it really well. So I suggest you sort of check them out for more information. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me. That just about concludes the solar flare video. Let's hope that the effects aren't too negative. Really interested to see if I can see the northern lights this weekend, although it's looking pretty cloudy and rainy, so I don't think I'll be able to see much. But yeah, thank you very much. There's the reconsider.news website if you want to check that out. It's got daily news that's updated. If you're feeling very generous and loving, then you can donate to Patreon. And then we have also PayPal as well. But till then, thank you very much. Take care. Bye.